Hi everyone, my name is James McConville. I'm an architect with ACT, and we are the social enterprise that is working in partnership with Muine Bheag's town team and Carlow County Council in the development of the town centre first plan for Bagenalstown. This is a short video that is to be preferably watched prior to completing the Visualising Futures survey, which will be open for 2 weeks from this date. But it also is a video to kind of show the thinking that went into the development of the town centre first plan and as part of the design process. So in terms of introducing what the project's about, it's for Bagenalstown, which is obviously on the bend of the Barrow River. And what you're looking at here is a kind of obviously a graphical representation of the town itself. And there's two boundary lines, one being the boundary line for this town centre first plan, and the second being the boundary line for the newly passed district town plan. In terms of what town centre first is, it's a policy developed by the government to bring life and vibrancy back into our town centres. And it all involves defining a role for the town, creating an image, generating vibrancy and vitality, providing for sustainable growth, protecting heritage and culture, ensuring sustainability, and fostering social inclusion. So there's quite a lot of objectives within Town Centre First policy, and this video is about trying to explain how the projects that are proposed as a result of the plan help achieve these core objectives. In terms of the process and delivery, we just completed the second public event last night for the Visualising Futures. Prior to that, we had a meeting with the town team in storytelling, and we'll be having a follow-up with the town team in mid-December to define the final structure of the Town Centre First master plan. In terms of the previous town team work, it was a fantastic set of different reports that have been done between Carlow County Council and Muine Bheag's town team, and these included the surveys that was conducted earlier this year that many people attended, and a lot of the projects proposed in that survey feed into this Visualising Futures presentation. There was a collaborative town centre health check done, a digital town blueprint, and then as well as that, the local authority, Carlow County Council, has been very supportive in this project, have got developed policy documents like the Climate Action Plan, Heritage Plan, and the recently passed District Town Plan, which we present within this document. These are all kind of pooled together, and we are trying to create a holistic town centre first plan as a result of that. So it's this holistic approach to designing the plan. As I mentioned, the plan draws heavily on the January workshop and survey conducted with the town team and Carlow County Council. And in this video, as a wee disclaimer, is I will get stuff wrong, and that is okay. This is put in because it's an iterative design process. We as ACT have kind of taken in all the data that we understand, but the survey itself is where we can get feedback and help refine the plan and make it as strong as possible. In terms of the context, this is Bagenalstown from the air, looking from the north coming in. It's along the River Barrow, which is obviously ties into the Grand Canal in Dublin. And the river itself has almost changed a lot in the terms of its kind of people's relationship to it. Now there's a lot more focused on tourism, and the river mouth is at the Waterford estuary. Now it's an SAC, and it's got a lot of different wildlife within that, including kingfishers, herons, and various different species. Connected to Dublin via train, and also Dublin to Waterford and Carlow to Kilkenny by bus, as part of the Mount Leinster Heritage Drive. In terms of the entrances, like what's the first thing you see as you enter the town? From the north, it's a beautiful entrance known as locally as the Aldi Triangle, but you have the river to the right hand side, and then you are brought into the town. From the east, you come down a nice hill, and you can see the Carlow fence to the right here. In the south, the same. You see the corner fence that maybe hasn't been filled in the same way. And from the west, it comes with a two-part entrance in the sense the junction at the Royal Oak. Then when you cross the bridge, passing in, you see the large industrial park to the right-hand side. In terms of how Google sees it, how the image of Bagenalstown it has today, from you look online, image search, a lot of it is like looking at the kind of heritage in terms of the canal, also the like Rutkin Mill pops up, the train station. Many of these buildings actually currently aren't actually being occupied or used, but it shows that there's a rich heritage in the town. And this all contributes to what the image of the town is today and its role. In terms of the historic maps, we looked at the previous history. It wasn't actually founded by the Bagnall family, but by Saint Lapham. But it was further developed when the milling industry really took off and its relationship to the canal. So that was the real kind of economic driver for the development. And the Walter Bagnall decided to build a town to be named the New Versailles, modeled after the town in France. One of the most beautiful buildings that's very striking for anyone that visits, especially myself coming in fresh, is the courthouse building, beautiful neoclassical building. Here's a view of it from today and the garden below. The historic centre, a grid system which allowed maximum access to the canal itself, so all the goods could be exported out. So it was a very clean, clear grid system. Later, the railway arrived in the 1840s, and this further connected Bagenalstown into a wider rail network as well as the canal network. The Market Square in the late 19th century. First town in Ireland to install dual language street signs, which remain in place today. And the Market Square in the early 90s. And tried to take a photo in the same place, Market Square from yesterday, actually, following the, and you can see the recent public enhancement works there. So you can see the town has been growing quite rapidly, especially during the Celtic Tiger, and you see a lot of movement, especially to the west, especially the development of the industrial park and many suburban housing units built. It continues to expand the industrial park. In terms of demographics, it's the kind of 1840s, the famine, the town has really trebled in size till it's near around just approaching 3,000 today, and there's obviously new housing plans that will most likely exceed that. In terms of the demographic, it's quite similar to the Irish average. Housing, majority housing is actually one person, but the collective, the cumulative majority is like family housing units in the town. Employment sector quite balanced, and appreciate there's a large kind of manufacturing base in the industrial estate in Bagenalstown that employs many people actually outside Bagenalstown as well. Employment like location, in terms of Bagenalstown, the majority of people actually work outside the town according to the latest census, and that's in contrast to the Irish average. In terms of the commuting times, the majority of commuting times are less than 15 minutes, and 7% of the population commute by car than the rest of Ireland, and about 4% more commute by biking and walking. So that suggests, and it's quite usual in kind of rural towns, is because of its size, there's a lot of people that do take the active travel option when going to work, but less people are using public transport, despite Bagenalstown being relatively well connected with the rail. It's an hour and 15 to Dublin, but also to Kilkenny and Carlow. In terms of the grey, green and blue infrastructures, you've got the River Barrow, the grey and permeable urban areas, the green permeable areas, and then the blue areas, and just highlight potential flood zones and the relationship there. In terms of Market Square, just revisiting this and it today. In terms of the heritage, we looked at the various kind of marked up areas of heritage as per the district town plan and the heritage map viewer, and we've kind of just laid these out more just to show that within the town there's many protected and listed buildings, and it's got a very rich heritage, especially the railway station You see one of the main buildings being obviously the courthouse. I think one of the things that's very important about this building is it faces the river, and it's an interesting being on Markets Square and seeing that one of the main prominent buildings just off that, the courthouse, doesn't actually look on to the street. It actually looks towards the river, where it's kind of maybe the birth of the town came from. Many mill buildings and kind of estate houses dotted around. Even additional heritage assets. And then when you look at the sites and monument record, there's many of these placed around. The general heritage assets overall. So Bagenalstown is very historic. In terms of additional analysis, we looked at the mobility in terms of the existing bus routes, and then where the district town plan is looking to add additional bus stops and connect to the train station. It's a welcome development. So this idea of a modal shift, moving from like a bus to a train or vice versa. There is several community centres in the town, sports centres, leisure restaurants and cafes. Many of these are from Google Maps, so they may or may not, the peaks and flows of different retail may or may not be fully there, but the general idea is that there's quite a lot of services within the town, and a lot of employers, especially within the industrial estate, but also to the east of the town as well. Service plants along the river. In terms of mobility, a 5-minute walk. This is with an isochrome. A 10-minute walk, 5-minute bike, and a 10-minute bike. So you can see, if you overlay the kind of various services from the centre working out to the edge, it is a 10-minute town in that respect, if you were to be using active travel. Existing walking routes. There was a walkability audit conducted late in November, where various members basically went round the town, part of Age Friendly Carlow, and working with Carlow County Council and the town team as well. And their report is yet to be delivered, but the initial findings suggested there was accessibility issues in and around the town for people requiring those additional needs. So it was a really interesting piece of data, and it will feed into how we approach the town centre first plan. In terms of parking, there's several parking areas in and around the town, many in the town centre. Again, a really good thing with having data was there was a traffic study or parking study done in 2013. It looked at 4 main zones around the town and looked at it from the entire day, and basically counted the cars, how many spaces were used, and at what times. And it's a quite small image, and we will have this within the main report. But one of the key things to say is each one of these is a zone. So morning, 6 to 10, 10 to 1, 1 to 5, and 5 to 8:30. The blue line on the side is actually the capacity of the amount of car parking spaces available, and we've dashed it there to see that's when the capacity is reached. One thing high level you can say is that there's not been a case. It's very close to the zone 4, but there's never been no car parking space available during that time on that study day. That said, you can also see the zone 3, the parade, has a lot of what I term as sleeping cars that they have a different bed at nighttime, probably where the person lives. They drive in potentially to work, and then they stay for the day in place, and then return home again in the evening. So it's understand that parking is used in different ways, and that's one of the been spending a few days in Bagenalstown and understanding that there has been different challenges in the town in regarding to people have raised there has been challenges in the town, and with the much needed accessibility works, there has been some car parking spaces have had to obviously be removed to facilitate making the town more accessible for all, and it has raised the challenge of the parking question. So in terms of Bagenalstown's parking challenges, one of the potential solutions that we see is developing and co-designing. I think the word co-design is very important, that it's a partnership between the public, the private, and the community and the third sectors to actually develop out parking management strategy for the town. And this could involve better use of existing spaces. It could involve on-street charging in selected areas, so you get a turnover of car parking spaces, so you don't get that sleeping car issue for days, for a day, where it stops other people who need to trade and go to the shops. Or it could be involved looking at additional parking areas, exploring ideas of park and ride. It most likely will be a range of different solutions, but done in a coordinated fashion and have buy-in from all groups. So I think it's a really important path for the town to take, to be proactive in how it's going to address its parking challenges. And within the survey, we've included an opportunity for people to feed into that as well. You could also look at the parking as an opportunity and look at it in terms of how you deal with water. You get a permeable parking, and Carlow County Council has been getting a very good name in terms of its rain gardens, and the idea of maybe using some of the best practices in nature-based solutions when you're having to build additional infrastructure to accommodate parking spaces and accommodate maybe traffic spaces, that you could incorporate some nature into that as well. In terms of potential development in and around the town, we've got a few different ones that have been in planning or currently in planning. One is a new housing scheme to the east, I think 65 units if I count correctly. Another one that is in current things in part 8 is the Safe Routes to School programme for the Queen of the Universe school. Another one is currently being developed is a road safety enhancement scheme at the Royal Oak. And I can say for the past couple of days I've been cycling around, and that junction for cyclists is quite dangerous. There's a proposed solar farm that's been passed close to the town. It's quite large. I thought we include it because it's quite relevant to in relation to the town. And the distillery site at the where the maltings building is, it wasn't passed by we didn't get through planning, but it's a good thing to highlight that there has been attempts to look at ways of adaptive reuse of that building coming in, and it's one of the main buildings coming in on the northern side. So understanding that there's potential opportunity there for adaptive reuse of a heritage building. One of the great things that the town team and Carlow County Council did was, for us as social enterprise and designers, was having a swap done is really important. And this, not to go into every element of it, it really will help us and has helped us already in understanding the key strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities that exist within Bagenalstown. And it means that any projects that are proposed as part of the plan can almost be then reassessed through the lens of the strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats that have been highlighted by the public. So what we did was we took the long list and broke them up into environmental strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. Again, I'm going to go through this relatively quickly, but it's just to show that there's been thought and your initial inputs have been considered in how we're thinking about the design. So the economics considerations. Movement. Social. Urban. In terms of the development of the town, it was developed on a grid with a historic zone, with semi-planned zones moving out as it developed, and then more suburban style planning as a result during the most recently during the Celtic Tiger. There was a large developments, but now there's obviously new developments planned and zoned. Look at some of the different planned town comparators. I'm not going to go into these in detail, but just to say that understanding there's other towns that have had a similar story to Bagenalstown, a planned town next to a river. So we've got Westport, even Ballinasloe, Tullamore. In 2025, just recently, the district town plan has been passed by Carlow County Council. And within this document, a very progressive document, it looks at a range of things, including housing, economic development, tourism, urban design, sustainable travel and transportation, infrastructure, and even the ideas of what sustainable communities are in climate action. So I'm just going to show the kind of the relevant elements that we found within the plan, the different zonings for enterprise, community, neighbourhood facilities. This is how the council is seeing the land that potentially could be, how it could be used. Open space and amenities, agriculture, proposed residential. The existing walking routes, some of the improved walking routes proposed. And we'll come back to this, but one of them is linkages with the suburbs that have been recently developed, that weren't developed with a grid, so they were kind of in, one out, kind of maybe car dependent style development. Proposed primary bike routes, secondary bike routes, and a proposed green path. There is a proposal for a linkage along the Barrow Way. Proposed segregated cycle routes because there's different widths of the roads, shared cycle routes, and quiet cycling routes. It also highlights potential opportunity sites in the town centre that overlook the River Barrow, and various different zonings, regeneration, infrastructure assessment, and settlement consolidation sites. So it's showing you that there's been a kind of a lot of thought has already been put into kind of the zoning of the town, and for you to understand where the town's, like the elements that have been zoned in and around the town. So what we're going to do now is move to more, we're looking in 2D and like a flat map. We're going to move to 3D because I think it's easier to understand the kind of different moves and different proposals within the town centre first plan. So we're going to turn the map upside down. So just for reference, so it's the other way around. So in this sense, north is this way. So the triangle Aldi's here, then the industrial estate here, and the Royal, the Oak Junction is up here. So we're just mapping on where the town opportunity sites exist currently, the settlement consolidation regeneration sites, and then in terms of the town centre first plan that we're developing. So we've done all that research. We've listened to the SWOTs that have been developed by the community and the various different interrelated kind of projects and schemes and reports. There was a list of potential projects that came out of the January event in the survey. And what we've tried to do is almost create a narrative around those different projects and see them, how they could fit within different moves for the town. But the top one that I've been hearing on the travels and in all the kind of feedback is the idea of reconnecting with the river. That idea that the courthouse faces the river, but as the town is developed, it's almost not connected directly with the river, and it's such a beautiful natural asset that you have in the town. So the River Barrow that flows along Bagenalstown and was the reason of its formation. So this idea of reconnecting with it and it's your natural heritage. So first move is introducing the Barrow Way. There's been areas that are kind of semi-pedestrianised, but then other parts that aren't accessible for all, definitely not for prams or bikes. So again, moving back to the north entrance, introducing this concept of a riverside plaza. This was previously proposed, I think, through Carlow County Council, but it's revisiting this project because it allows you to be the first kind of gathering space for people that you see when you move into from the north into Bagenalstown. And then it allows you almost as a bookend to explore all the different potential heritage along the river, including Rutkin's Mill and the Lodge Mill, and there's various other little architectural elements. There's a kind of the quays and the kind of little fisherman's hut along there as well. In terms of section, yeah, it's a cut through what we're showing. The current situation, we're proposing making like a cycleway, but means that the ground is of a certain quality that means it can be accessible for all along there. And even walking down there and seeing it, there's a lot of opportunities, lots of wall space maybe potentially for art. And like I said, I was cycling and trying to explore around the town and see how the Barrow Way currently works. And as I cycled further away from Bagenalstown to the bridge, the ground itself became a lot softer and it became very hard to even walk on it, let alone cycle. So it is much needed to actually make this accessible for all. When you got to uh, the stairs leading onto the bridge, also another challenge for a cyclist or anyone with the pram, and it could be a very low cost, simple solution in terms of putting a metal channel in to allow a bike to get up. Looking at Gregnamana motorhome as a good example from Kilkenny, there was a lot of talk of wanting to bring tourists into the town and providing a space for motorhomes to park up. So we looked at the reference here, which has over 70 plus motorhomes, and seeing how we could actually apply this to different sites in Bagenalstown as a test, as a capacity study test. So the first one was the STP site, which was able to accommodate around 57 motorhomes and supporting facilities. The second one was a more town centre location at the old council yard and block, and that was able to accommodate around 11 motorhomes. The second kind of almost story to frame this town centre first plan. The first is about reconnecting with the natural heritage. The second was more with the built heritage and this idea of heritage-led regeneration. So we've mapped previously all the heritage assets in and around the town, including the sites and monuments. We digitize this and bring it into an app where you could actually go and explore the town, maybe through QR codes strategically placed around the town, building on some of the work that's already been done, and be able to give people direct information or even narrated information on the various historic elements in and around the town. The Carlow County Council are currently developing such a project for Tullow. So there's a very good case study which has local actors acting out scenes in and around the town. This could easily be applied to Bagenalstown. So link here. Second one is the courthouse, the most prominent building in the sense of how it looks onto the river and maybe that link between the natural and the built heritage. Exploring how best we could use the garden. Having experienced it, I understood that this kind of through passageway was currently locked and closed, and several reasons for that. One was to do with accessibility because of the ground conditions, and obviously it's quite wet, it's quite steep site, and the challenge was it was quite slippy and it wasn't very accessible for the users, especially when I was there on a frosty day. So maybe discussing what kind of garden could maybe go in there if we were looking to upgrade the potential accessibility to it. Is a manicured garden the most appropriate garden for such a steep site? Or could it be exploring like maybe a multi-sensory garden where it's more wilder, maybe more water-loving plants and focusing more on bringing back biodiversity into the town centre? Or could it be about bringing people and actually using the space more consistently? Maybe a community vegetable garden. In terms of presentation house, this has been designed to be a new area for employment and enterprise, and it's being currently at part 8 with Carlow County Council. So looking at how we integrate this project into the town centre first plan. Train station, gorgeous building, and also highlights the connectivity that Bagenalstown has with Dublin, only being an hour and 15 away. With the installation of the kind of ticket system, it no longer requires any staff. And how could we reuse this train station? You know, what could it be? Could it be a space for potentially for an exhibition space exhibiting what's happening in and around Bagenalstown? Could it be simply for commuter bike storage to facilitate a modal shift similar to the bus arriving at the train station? You're getting off a bus to a train. Could it be about people cycling to the the train station, leaving their bike, potentially an e-bike, in a secure location and then getting on the train for the day? Or is it something like very bespoke to Bagenalstown and maybe leaning into the Bagenalstown in Bloom festival, something maybe to do with yarn bombing? In terms of another concept for the town is this idea of activation. And there's the two parts to this. In terms of mobility, it's kind of building on from the train station, and the idea that it has got quite a high level of car dependency, higher than the national average, is looking at that you currently have the train station that connects from Dublin to Waterford, but you've got a bus stop that collects from Carlow to Kilkenny, and looking at how we can maybe connect these two pieces of infrastructure and the potential of a green spine that links them, and looking maybe at maybe initially looking at bikes, shelters at either one to allow people to actually leave their bike there for the day, lock it up and keep it dry. And you could even build on that concept and actually maybe look into e-bikes, so it's even a quicker journey between the both. And the train station itself already kind of acting as a park and ride for commuters who are parking for the day, going to Dublin and coming back. Could we do the same potentially up at the Royal Oak and get a more formalised agreement with this? And this is all coming back maybe to more the co-design parking management strategy. Having a discussion and a partnership between the public and private sectors to actually how we better use the space for the benefit of Bagenalstown. Looking at this road in between the Royal Oak Drive, the current situation and understanding that there's different widths of the road depending as you move up into the town, and how a bikeway would interact with that, what that would mean in terms of the width for the road or width for the footpath. And there's different options for this. And we're presenting these more as ideation to show there's different ways of doing this. And you could even look at having a boulevard, bringing trees back onto the Royal Oak Drive, because when I was there wasn't that many oaks. There was a few in the way coming in, different trees, but there wasn't as many trees lining the street. In terms of the wider section of the road, you have more scope to maybe bring in a cycleway, or even bringing in trees. And then this idea of if we have a green spine and we have a barrow way, could we actually look at how we, there's a potential connection point there at that bridge, but is there other ways of actually connecting them, like with the current development proposed, the Queen of the Universe, with the Safe Routes to School? Could we look at how that could link into the barrow way? And then maybe see that again through how we look at how we can connect with the town centre and the barrow way, connecting the blue way and the green way. Second kind of this idea of activating the town is this idea of the social activation. And one of the things that looking at the development, how the town developed almost away from the river, away from the original grids to a more suburban style of living, there was a lot of open spaces and amenities that were created. So this is what is currently zoned in the district town plan. And there is quite a lot of open spaces in these suburban developments. This image actually is, I think, quite interesting, and it may even pause and have a look at it a bit closer, but you can see almost different developments, how they were drawn in isolation of each other, and there is like a lack of connectivity, and especially socially connectivity between the spaces. So if you look closely here, there's almost a series of walls that demarcate the developments, and this means that there is very little permeability on the site. So, and you might travel into, there is different walls around here, kind of almost you live so close to your neighbor, but you can't actually physically get there walking. So a good case in point is the Family Resource Centre, which is located in one of the developments. And if I was a family living in front of the development, I would have a 30-second walk. But I lived even closer to the Family Resource Centre, but was on the wrong side of the wall, let's say. I end up having, I think from Google Maps, it was around 1.3 kilometer walk, and I'm objectively about 20 meters away from the building. So there is some challenges there with mobility, and strategic moves and architecture and design urban principles could help alleviate this. So just going a bit further next to this Family Resource Centre, I actually went and explored it and seen, do people actually do that 1.3 kilometer walk? I was suspecting they didn't. And you can see the desire lines on the grass that the people actually are walking. Someone's actually put a big rock next to one of the walls, and you climb over. But obviously that's not accessible for for everyone. Not everyone can clear a wall to save a journey. And it's also I was on my bike, and it was even harder. I did get it over, but it was an interesting experience, probably for the people watching me doing it as well. But that's like looking back at the Family Resource Centre from the other family living on the wrong side of the wall, let's say. So is there an opportunity there with the open spaces to reactivate these open spaces, but then also simultaneously reconnect some of these housing developments? So there's the existing walking routes, you see those disconnects there, but a lot of them border onto open spaces and amenities. So if we could see those as opportunities for providing linkages, you can almost do two birds with one stone and facilitate a lot more active travel within the town. Because currently, as you said before, the person has to drive all the way around, go onto the main road, and then come back for what a journey could be done on foot quicker and more sustainably. Some of the projects that were highlighted in the January workshop was the idea of having a dog park, a basketball court, a skate park, so different types of activities for different age groups. In essence, what the elements that go on there can be further refined down, but the idea is that it's about socially bringing people together and giving spaces for people. Could even have a community garden within one of these spaces. So what we're proposing is using these interlocutors, these green spaces, as the opportunity to provide a social space, but also reconnect the communities that are living there together. So that's the one of the key moves in the town centre first plan. Because the alternative would be making this program, potentially putting a dog park and putting them all in like one big space, and the spaces that you would place maybe would be outside the town or outside another area, and then you create another problem of how does everyone get there. So the idea is if we can put these social connecting spaces to where people live, you facilitate more, make better places to live, but also facilitate more active travel. Looking as well at some of these, moving on from some of these family resource centres again, but looking just how many you have in the town currently. Beautiful swimming pool, open door, open air for a couple of months a year. Asking people around the town about these different services. There was a few people that didn't really understand that the Bagenalstown even had a community centre, and there's a kind of a gap there, maybe with some people moving in, of what there is available in the town. So is there an opportunity similar to being the first to institute dual signage? Could be for the town of your scale to introduce some digital signage and have an innovative modern response to that. So getting some interactive digital signs, or even maybe just controlled via kind of Wi-Fi, that are telling participants what's happening in and around the town on the day, and also promoting local businesses and what they're doing. Because there's been a push to spend local and buy local. You can double up for community events, and looking at that. Also looking at the various painting schemes in and around the town. There's some dereliction, and how we could look at painting as an opportunity in a coordinated approach to bring vibrancy back into the town centre. There's been some sporadic attempts to try and paint, provide like a swatch and kind of be doing some painting. Some good examples of a lovely street that's painted with lots of different colours that kind of balance each other. But could there be a more coordinated Bagenalstown level style approach to this? There's also some lovely art works that's been dotted in and around the town. Could again there be a more coordinated approach to doing this? A great example being Dundalk Town Centre, that's been using their heritage and creating works of art all across the towns. It's almost like a big art gallery now. Every year they're painting new ones and trying new ones out, bringing vibrancy back into the town centre. So that could be something to look at. I know Carlow County Council has been working in Carlow itself on various paint schemes, and there is different avenues available for that. And then finally, looking at the future and this idea of resilience. Like we're moving toward more rainfall and actually warmer temperatures, the kind of extremes, and that will necessitate a strategy for how we deal with increased stormwater, and also providing canopies to escape increased heat events as well. So looking again at the town and the River Barrow, it is a river. It can flood sometimes. What does that mean in terms of the town? When there is a kind of like a 1 in 100-year flood event, and could there be thinking maybe strategically about where we plant trees and potential of a riparian buffer, which acts for biodiversity but also helps support in kind of alleviating some potential flooding problems. So back to the original section of the waterfront, could we bring some trees on the other side and maybe create a nice more enclosed river as well, from a visual perspective as well. In terms of the market square, could we do some tactical urbanism and bring in some of the kind of hard spaces, the grey spaces, some more permeability, more biodiversity, and maybe looking at ideas of rain gardens, building on what Carlow County Council is currently doing, pocket forests, or even green walls, great example has been recently delivered in Ballina by a project spearhead with UCD called Cascade, and looking at actually tapping into existing kind of downpipes and taking the water that would have went into the stormwater and actually using it and slowing it down and putting it into green walls, and even bringing art and creativity into it. Why does a rainwater downpipe have to just go straight down? Provide a bit of joy, a bit of art, a bit of creativity. And this idea maybe pulling back into the idea of permeable parking as well, and bringing some more opportunities for the water just to soak in and not have to be put into the storm water. This has already been done very well and award-winningly by Cardiff County Council, so leaning into what you're already doing really, really well in the county. So this is in terms of the locations, we've kind of picked a few areas in the town centre, a few areas in the suburban areas, but this is where the survey that's attached to this it'd be really important for you to provide potential locations that this could be maybe applicable for. So to finish off, like looking at where's Bagenalstown going? This is like a long-term strategy. So Bagenalstown in 2050, what could it be? And we're proposing that Bagenalstown in 2050 is connected to its natural heritage, the river, and its built heritage that grew out from its connection with the river. That it's active both socially and in terms of mobility, that people can walk and take a bike if they choose, and they're able to move freely around the town to do that. And that it's resilient, that it's looking ahead, looking forward, and looking ready for the potential shock events in terms of extreme rainfall or heat. So I'm going to let you just see briefly before, and it'll be in the description box, the survey, which will be in the description. But if you're able to take the time now to go through this, it'd be much appreciated. We're going to be open for a couple of weeks, and yeah, we take all your feedback and put it into and look at how best we can incorporate into the plan. So I'd like to thank you very much, and yeah, we will be continuing the development of the Town Centre First Plan for delivery at the end of January. Thanks for now.